actually I want to go into this little application here. And that's, again, my second part of this live stream. Before I explain what I did here, let me just tell you a little bit of negative harmony. It's really not as fancy as some of you might think, which means negative harmony is really a basic and fundamental part of music theory. And I guarantee you've already come across negative harmony. Maybe you didn't know it at this point, but if you know the circle of fifth, for example, then you have touched on negative harmony, especially when we talk about cadences. You know that there are authentic cadences and plagal cadences. Guess what? Another word for negative could be plagal, because authentic cadences and plagal cadences, they are reflections, one of the other, right? If you pick your tonal center, like your C in the circle of fifth, then you have the F. Well, I have to invert my view when I look into the camera. You have the F on the one side and the G on the other side. F and G share the same gravitation to the note C. And that is true for all of the steps that are really a reflection in the circle of fifths. So that's nothing else than negative harmony. Then everything that you can do to the melody, like a reflection, a retrograde, this all is connected to negative harmony. All of these things. And this is common practice in music theory. So negative harmony is not an isolated subject, really. And I don't really understand why it gets treated as such, probably because it becomes very popular nowadays. But actually, there's really quite a bit of a history to negative harmony. Okay, so let's see. What else? Oh yeah, I almost forgot. Negative harmony is a great little helper when it comes to enhancing the sound of the diatonic system. And that is really something that I want to show in this little application here as well, because this could become a unique selling point to your compositions. Okay, so this really can be something that can dramatically improve your writing, really, and the quality of what you can get down on paper. So with that being said, let me talk you through this application here. And as some of you know, we have our little 3-step process, most of the times at least, and that is gathering materials first, secondly, sketching, and then the development. So in this case, this is really just the moment where I want to get inspired. So I started with this little guy here, and that is actually something, as you can read right here, that is already found in this ebook. I should have mentioned this is the ebook, 38 pages of negative harmony. So we do have an ebook that explains all the concepts of negative harmony, how to turn a melody into negative melody, how to turn 2-part harmony into negative harmony, 3-part, 4-part, and cluster structures, all these type of things. So in this case, that was an example from above, and I just liked the sound of it. So I thought, okay, let's pick this example and let's put this into negative harmony, and let's see how far we can go using this as our inspirational starting point. And I want to actually play this to you real quick, just this first line, so that you really see the development in each step and each of these ideas. So that is page 18, and here we go. Okay, so that was the first line. Then I thought, okay, for my first idea right here at bar 62, I really wanted to get rid of my root tones, of the half notes at least. The first thing that comes at least to my mind is really, okay, what happened if I simply made my root tone appear last on that structure? Okay, so you can see that here is still the note G, and that's the last note in my little run. And here is the note C, which is again the last note in my little run. And then I've just wrote a little line into the G and a little line into the C with no relation to any scales, really. So this is just a little run that is based on the concept I don't want to hit a 13 with any of my treble notes right here. And that was my first idea, because this sounds more interesting. And then my second idea was, okay, let me start. Probably if you know me, then you already know that I'm a big fan of negative harmony. And so, well, negative harmony at one hand, and chromatic harmony, I was about to say, chromatic harmony. So I started with a chromatic line. In this case, it was my bottom line here, and that is A, B flat, natural B, and C. And then I simply alternated between those two structures from above, like my 2 plus 6 from here and 6 plus 2. For those who have missed the previous live streams, we at M.I.T.A, we read these structures here from the bottom note to the top. Okay, so whatever your starting note is, and you want to build a 2 plus 6 on that starting note, take this bottom note, go up by 2, that's another guy, then from this guy, go up by 6. Okay, and that is how you create these vertical structures. So that's a 2 plus 6, that's a 6 plus 2. And I simply alternated between the two. And this was actually a good idea, because the OI, I already explained what the OI is. That's the outside interval of the structure. And you get to the OI if you simply add these two numbers right here. And that is, you get an 8 out of these two numbers, okay? So 2 plus 6 equals 8. Well, of course, 6 plus 2 equals 8 as well. And as a result, I'm creating another chromatic line on top. And in between, I have a little guy that is jumping around my bottom and my top note. And this is a very interesting movement when you listen to this. And that's the moment when I want to play this to you. So here we go. Okay, so good so far. So these are my ideas for the sketch. And now we actually talk about the composition right here. And let me talk about the color coding first. So everything that you're going to see, that you will be seeing in blue, comes, of course, from this side right here. That's my original side, okay? And everything in green comes from my negative side. So that is for the color coding. These guys in red, right here or down here, they, most of the times, they are either leading tones or substitute tones. ST standing for substitute tone, which means I simply broke my pattern, my original pattern, my line, and I switched to another guy for whatever reason. In this case, to avoid a 13 with my upper structure. In this case, to create a 13, the B against the note C up here, because that is, in this case, a great little rub that resolves itself in the next bar. And for that reason, I just thought, okay, normally I would avoid 13s, but in this case, I like it. So why not? And then this is my little motif, the 2 plus 6, but right now written as a line, as a horizontal structure. And this is just my triad that I'm resolving into from above. Then I should mention these leading tones right here. I write those last, which means whenever I know, okay, that's my motif, that's my repetition of the motif, things like that, then I'm going back and I'm adding these little things as decoration, as little details to the writing, but I'm not spending my time. When I'm writing this line from A to Z, I'm not spending any time dealing with leading tones or decoration in any way, because this only slows down the process. And that is not something that I want to do. So, that being said, let me just talk about these structures here above. Those are not really 2 plus 6 or 6 plus 2 structures, but the funny thing is they are close to chord structures. So you still remember this all right here was based on a G root tone, okay? So these guys here, that's the G, that's the F, that's an A. So it's really nothing else than a ninth chord and missing a 3 in between somewhere. But the funny thing is the 3 comes in right here on the next little triplet. So I'm giving the information about chords, but sequentially, not vertically at once. And this is really this whole line up here. As you can tell from this 8VA, this is in a fairly high register. This also goes a little bit into the effects range, which means when we look at the overtone series, in the effects range, we are not really in the harmonic range anymore, and the effects range is a bit special. So you can do different things in the effects range. That is something that we talk about in the overtone series ebook as well. But this is at least from this concept of using the overtone series. That was my starting point for these structures above here. And they have, of course, the function of creating a rhythm, because down here I have my little line, and that is good. I have my little side line right here that is outlining my root tones or my harmony structures, a little bit at least. This would be scale tone 5, scale tone -6, scale tone 1. But I'm not thinking of them really as scale tones in this context. I'm thinking of them really more as a line. So I want to create a nice sideline to this guy up here. That was my intention. And then I simply thought, okay, let's add a little bit of rhythm and more interest, right? And this is really how I wrote this whole piece here. And to be honest, this would take me probably another hour to explain the whole thing. So I will give you an offer actually at the end of this live stream, how to get to the information, how I wrote this whole thing right here. But I'm running out of time otherwise. So let me just play you the sketch so that you can listen to what this all sounds like from our original ideas from these starting points here. So let me open this. This is page 19 to 25. Yeah, get the cheese. Obviously, a little story about a mouse trying to get the cheese. Then we have the big bad cat who comes in the low register right here in this negative green line. So all of these structures, really, that is completely taken from my starting point, completely. And this is a very, very inspiring way of writing. And everything that I'm doing here with this pulse above, you can actually read this right here, of course, but I can also give you more information on that and how to use that in a second here. So that is the sketch right now. And next thing is I want to go into, let me just make sure that I'm seeing the live stream here. Okay. Then I want to get into the orchestration. And the orchestration, that is what we call the development. Okay. And that is the moment where we go into distributing voices to the orchestra, to orchestral sections, thinking of them as functions so that everything becomes more interesting. And that is really the whole score right here. As you can tell, this is lots of notes. So I would prefer not to show these pages because I have to scroll very quickly and probably you won't see anything. But let me go to the sketch again and let me play you the development, because the development is pretty close to the sketch and you will hear all of these things nonetheless. Let's see. I have a little introduction in front of this segment here, but that's not a problem. I will point you through the sketch. So here is our development. Yeah, there you have it. Get the cheese. So I'm really so inspired by these structures, because the funny thing is when you listen to them, it always sounds like you wrote these things on a tonal center, with the idea of creating tonal centers. And guess why? Because it is true. I created these things on tonal centers, but I'm not following any musical key or any scale in particular. So my way of thinking, at least in this piece here, really was, I have my structure, my original structure, which was a 2 plus 6, and I have my negative structure, which was a 6 plus 2. And then what can we do from there? No matter what the actual notes are in the end, just take these structures and go with what we call the nature of these intervals. And that is really how I created these orchestrations, how I decided what part comes next, how I created musical storytelling in this piece. So that's the whole idea. And the funny thing is, this really is written very quickly, which means the sketch probably won't take longer than, let's say, half an hour to an hour, really. And then, of course, the orchestration and the mock-up, yes, this takes a little bit more time. Of course, there are no shortcuts. But for getting inspired and for maintaining this mood and riding the wave a little bit longer with technique that you can apply to these structures, this really gets you going. That is part of what we call tapping into the creative pool. So actually, it is a limitation, because my gathering of materials sets the information that I want to use in this composition. So I would say it is a wise decision to spend a little bit more time in the gathering process, because this way you can make sure that you really can create some materials that you can work with in order to create a specific mood. It's always easier if you want to write a romantic piece to start with a structure or a line or whatever musical material that reminds you of the genre, that you want to write for. Makes way more sense than picking something that is not related to your genre emotionally and then trying to make it fit and trying to fix it later. That is always harder, and it takes away the fun. It really takes away the fun. So that's the idea with this little application. I mentioned that I can't really, because of time issues, can't go completely into the explanation of these little things here. But what I can tell you and offer you is we have this ebook in the membership, and that is available for the members. There are, I believe, an hour and 10, 15 minutes of video material of actually me talking about this piece and the concepts. And I will make the video, which is around 15, 16 minutes in length, in which I talk about this piece and the concepts that I've used. I will make this available to everybody in the M.I.T.A magazine. If you don't know what M.I.T.A magazine is, that's our newsletter. It's a fancy name because I really like the alliteration with the M's. So you might ask, okay, how can I get on this newsletter list? Simply, go to Google, type in Music Interval Theory Academy. That's it. And you will find musicintervaltheory.academy. That's our website. And if you scroll down a little bit on the front page, the front side, then you will see that, I can actually stop my screen sharing for now. Then you will see that there is a little blue button somewhere that pops up. And this says, sign me up to M.I.T.A magazine. So that's exactly how to get on that email list. We can actually, when you go to the website and when you're there, you will see that the course, the application course of the Negative Harmony Part 1 is online by today. And there is a free lesson that is available. You don't need to register. You don't need to sign up. You don't need to give your email address. You just hit on, okay, show me that sample lesson, and then you can get the materials and everything. And I believe it's lesson 7, and we have covered lesson 6, so it makes perfect sense. But I haven't really planned this. And another last thing is, for those guys who are interested in learning how to write with intervals and how to use intervals, because I believe that's one of the most efficient ways that you can do in order to enhance the diatonic system. Please use the comments and write a comment in there that reads, "Get the cheese." When you do this, this actually indicates and gives me a sign that I will follow up with you and we can have a conversation. But this indicates that you want to get more information about how to learn this type of writing. I'm so dedicated to help you grow. That's our philosophy. The same goes for my co-founder and partner, Thomas J. Jones. He's a great guy. And this actually brings me to the closing words here. So it was a pleasure as always. We will continue with these live streams. So probably before Christmas, I'm not quite sure. Maybe we will have one, but we are going to share the date and the time via M.I.T.A magazine. So please hop on that list and you will never miss any event again. So that is great. Guys, I want to say many thanks. Don't forget, if you're interested, write down "get the cheese" and I will show you how to get the cheese. Perfect. So have a great evening. Good night. See you soon. That's it. I'm off. This is Frank. Bye-bye.